It is a mission that brings us closer to understanding how our world was formed. A robot launched by the United States Space Agency NASA has successfully landed on the surface of Mars and will help reveal space's deepest secrets over the next 2 years. We tell you more in our next report.
37 meters, 30 meters, 20 meters, 17 meters, standing by for touchdown. Touchdown confirmed.
NASA's Mission Control in Pasadena. California burst into celebration after the InSight probe landed on Mars. The 7 minutes the probe took to approach the surface of the red planet had the world sitting on the edge of their seats.
Within about 6.5 minutes. Touchdown confirmed.
But as soon as touchdown was confirmed, NASA scientists were over the moon.
It was an incredibly emotional experience to think about working for 7 years, as many of the people here in the room have done, to get to the point where you have 7 more minutes to survive, literally survive, is incredibly hard to describe. My heart was basically, I think, just stopped beating for 7 minutes. I don't know if that's healthy or not, but then when we got the indication of parachute deployment, which was absolutely terrifying thing to think about, we got that positive.
Ecstatic scenes were witnessed at New York's Times Square as well, where people braved the rain and gathered in large numbers for the big moment. Minutes later, images of the Mars landscape were sent back by the robot.
I can't take out.
Congratulatory messages poured in from across the world and from astronauts on board the International Space Station. After a tense journey of 6 months, the 3-legged probe is now sitting on a vast plain of the planet called Elysium Planitia, close to the planet's equator.
But we're still doing that at a supersonic speed.
It is the first probe to dedicate its investigations to understanding the planet's deep interior. The seismometer on board InSight will measure seismic waves from Mars quakes, detecting anywhere from between 12 and 100 of these tremors, up to 6.0 on the Richter scale. InSight will be spending 2 years on the red planet. That is 1 Martian year. The findings will help scientists learn about how rocky worlds like the Earth and Moon were formed more than 4.5 billion years ago and reveal space's deepest secrets. As of now, scientists understand how Earth's interior is structured. Studying the surface of Mars will give researchers a different perspective on how rocky planets came into being and evolved over time.
On to France now, where for days there have been protests erupting over high petrol prices. Now, the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, has refused to slash petrol prices. He says that he, quote-unquote, hears the protesters, but will not be scrapping fuel taxes. There was chaos on the Champs-Élysées on Saturday and across Paris as police used tear gas and water cannon to disperse the protesters. The demonstrations had been billed by the Yellow Vest movement, as it's called, as an Act 2 in a campaign that began a week ago. Though the protests initially focused on a rise in a fuel duty on diesel, they later grew to reflect anger at rising living costs, particularly in rural areas, and other grievances against the president's policies. More than 100,000 people took part in multiple protests across France on Saturday. Observers say the protests are more against inequality than against taxes per se.
En fait, c'est pas du tout un mouvement qui est contre le principe de l'impôt. Ça n'est pas un mouvement comparable au Tea Party, ça n'est pas un mouvement libertarien qui est anti-État, anti-impôt, pas du tout. Je pense que c'est un mouvement qui a d'abord pour ressort principal la question du pouvoir d'achat, la question des inégalités, et que ensuite et la question de la visibilité de l'argent public et de ce qui est fait de l'argent public et de ce qui est fait de l'argent des impôts.
So President Macron is walking a very thin line here. On the one hand, as you were saying, he needs to calm the anger of the more than 250,000 people who've taken to the streets across France in the last 10 days or so to protest, particularly against that rise in the fuel tax, which comes in on the 1st of January. On the other hand, though, in this wide-ranging speech on energy policy that he's given this morning, he also needs to show that France is sticking to its targets under the Paris Climate Agreement and indeed setting an example for other countries. So, he said, we all must take our collective responsibility in cutting carbon emissions and fighting global warming. We can't be in favour of the environment on Monday and then against fuel taxes on Tuesday, he said, and that's why he won't be doing a U-turn on that fuel tax increase. He did say, though, that the vast majority of the price at the pump is down to geopolitical factors and not tax, and that in the future the taxes in France would be adapted according to the global price of oil, although quite how that mechanism would work he didn't explain. He did also aim to confront some of people's concerns about the cost of living, saying that the energy transition would in the end be cheaper for everyone because moving towards renewable energy would cut people's energy bills, and making it clear that there's public money available for people to switch to less polluting cars and to make energy saving measures like insulating their homes.
The relocation of a century-old Hindu temple has triggered unrest and even riots in Kuala Lumpur. Malaysian police arrested 21 people after riots broke out outside the Indian temple on Monday morning. Reports say that a group of intruders barged into the temple complex armed with samurai swords, iron rods and axes. The attackers targeted devotees praying at the Mariamman Devasthanam. A temple spokesperson claims that the temple has been seeking police protection for several months now, but their demands have gone unheard. The dispute did not end with the incident on Monday, though. There was a retaliatory strike this morning after another group torched vehicles and vandalized the office of a property developer who owns the temple land and is part of a legal tangle to relocate the temple. The Sri Mahamariamman Devasthanam temple dates back to 1873. It is the oldest Hindu temple in the Malaysian capital. Some reports hint that a property developer has his eyes set on the place of worship. Take a listen in to some reactions.
At about 2 o'clock, suddenly a group of mobsters gate crashed and entered into the premises. And they started shouting slogans, and they told that everyone should clear this temple premises, all should go out. They want to acquire it and give it to the one city. They mentioned this. So they said, all of you get out from here, and they brought very strong weapons, samurai swords, iron rods, the charcoal, axe. In fact, they used the axe and hit our security guard in the entrance, and he is now in the ICU. More than 2 months, we have given the police hundreds of reports asking for protection, that we are in a threatened position by the developer, so please give us protection. And they refused. Even lately also we went and gave reports asking for police protection. They never gave us any protection.
Malaysian media are quoting Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad as having said that the incident had nothing to do with race or religion, even though the matter involves the relocation of a temple. Malaysia is officially an Islamic country, and Hindus, who constitute 6% of the population there, are a minority. Even if the Malaysian Prime Minister is to be believed, many questions still remain unanswered. Why did the Malaysian police let the situation slip out of hand, and why was the oldest Hindu temple in Kuala Lumpur not provided adequate protection despite several demands as claimed? Dozens of Tunisian rights activists and journalists rallied against a planned visit by Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman over the killing of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The Crown Prince is expected to arrive in Tunisia as part of a tour of several Arab countries on his first trip abroad since Khashoggi's murder. Rights activists, among them journalist union members, had called for a protest at the central Habib Bourguiba Avenue, which was the scene of mass protests that also toppled Ben Ali in 2011. Saudi Arabia had said that Crown Prince had no prior knowledge of the killing of the Washington Post columnist at Riyadh's consulate in Istanbul.
نشوفها غلطة اللي هما يستقبلوه. يعني ما تنجمش أنت تعمل حاجة شعبك اللي انتخبك مش موافق عليها. أنت في حالة كيما هكايا نحنا حطيناك أنت تعمل حاجات اللي نحنا نوافقوا عليها نجيب العباد اللي نحنا حشمنا بهم.
And earlier, the Saudi Crown Prince had arrived in Egypt, where he was greeted by the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Christmas is almost a month away, but the festivities have already begun. From twinkling lights to giant Christmas trees, these countries have already gotten into the holiday spirit.
It is that time of the year again, the time when the streets are decorated with lights, tinsels and glitter. Christmas trees line up stores and homes, and shoppers queue outside gift shops. People around the world embrace the holiday spirit with delicious food, beautiful lights, and their families exchanging gifts. How can America's top office be left out of the Christmas fervor? First Lady Melania Trump revealed this year's White House decoration. This year, Trump's decked up the White House halls with a patriotic theme called American Treasures. Over 14,000 red ornaments are hanging from 29 trees inside the White House. The White House's Red Room, which was dominated by the white and red, featured Be Best ornaments, the First Lady's signature initiative, and soccer ball ornaments. But the decor didn't gel with everyone. Melania Trump was trolled on Twitter for the eerie decor in the White House this year. Referring to horror movies, Twitterati ridiculed Melania Trump, calling the decor Circle of Hell. But the spirit of Christmas is not easy to dampen. The Trumps may not have received the praise they were looking for. But in Paris, fashion designer Karl Lagerfeld wowed tourists and locals alike. Lagerfeld kicked off the festive season in Paris. The designer lit up the iconic Champs-Élysées Avenue. The 400 trees on the famed avenue sparkled with twinkling red little bulbs to the joy of onlookers and drivers on the busy streets. London's ZSL Zoo also came alive with illuminated sculptures of giraffes, penguins and flamingos. Christmas time is a paradise for shoppers. Berlin's Christmas market has officially opened its doors to the public, giving revelers a reason to enjoy the traditional offerings of mulled wine and seasonal food. Around the world, people are awaiting the holiday season. And even though Christmas is a month away, the jingle bells are already ringing. Bureau Report, World is One.